bone marrow. So today we will be looking at the internal organs. This will be similar like yesterday, similar amount, but it will be much more complicated because the internal organs are very complicated. All right, so first we start with the urinary system. So urinary system consists of the kidneys and the urinary bladder. In gentlemen, it's also the prostate gland. Ladies do not have a prostate gland. So now we move on to the kidneys. In the kidneys, we can see there are so-called pyramids. These pyramids contain little factories to filter the blood. We'll be looking at a video. So in this video from Design Mate, I've removed the sound to encourage you everybody to watch the original video. Actually, this one I think is also cut, so it's not complete. So there we have the illustration of how the blood gets filtered. So the blood comes into the so-called Bowman's capsule through the blood vessels, and as it comes in this capsule through the vessels, we can see that salts, water, and waste are escaping from those vessels. And then gradually the water is sometimes coming back into the body, while the waste. So let me see, how's that? So we get salts, and then water and important salts are absorbed back. Okay, so then we get water, some of the water and the waste moving towards the urinary bladder. Okay, so this is for gentlemen. We don't have gentlemen here. For gentlemen need to have the prostate. The prostate is a switch. The prostate switches what's going out. Is it urine or is it sperm? As for ladies, they do not have that kind of switch. They do not need it. So ladies have it separately. So ladies have birth canal and urinary, how do we call it, urethra. Separately, there is no such switch needed. So from the bladder, it immediately goes out. And the ladies' reproductive system is also available here. The idea behind this is that when you consider the urinary system, that means kidneys, because kidneys is the bodily part taught by the Buddha to be observed. You can consider the reproductive organs as part of the kidneys. As for men, and ladies actually is the same thing, but I don't have it here in the picture. The kidneys are not just kidneys like that. The kidneys are a little bit more complicated because at the top of those kidneys, there are so-called adrenal glands. Adrenal glands. We will probably see it here in the video. Okay, here it is. Those are these yellow ice creams. So these are structures at the top of the because I had reduced the zoom. So here, as you can see, these little caps on the kidneys, they are adrenal glands. They are responsible for most importantly, sexual hormonal changes. And that's, I'm now not sure about the ladies, but in men, it's 100%. Okay, so here we see it again. So again, we see, I'll zoom out. So again, here we see the urinary bladder and directly going out without any need for prostate. So this was urinary system. Now we are moving on to the breathing system. To understand the breathing system, we need to understand the cells. So in the body, we have many cells, and these cells, in order that they stay alive, they need energy. If the cell doesn't have energy, it dies. So how will you do that? How will you make sure, how does the cell make sure that it lives? Well, it makes sure that it lives by producing energy. So each cell has its little factory for producing energy. These factories are called mitochondria. Now, these mitochondria, what they do, they're basically just converting things into energy and other things. In detail, they convert glucose plus oxygen into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. All right, so that's why it's very important that we have sugar. Okay, and it's also important that when you are tired, that you also use sugar. The Buddha has actually allowed to monks to drink sugar mixed with water, even if they're healthy, as much as they want. So you can actually have you can actually take sugar, even if you follow the so-called 8 precepts. Even if you are a monk or a nun, you still can drink sugar with water to get more energy. And the energy is created by combining glucose and oxygen. And then thanks to this process, you get the so-called carbon dioxide. So the blood brings the sugar and oxygen into the cells, and then the cells produce carbon dioxide, water, and energy, and they're then combined with the blood. So the blood, especially the carbon dioxide and water, and then the blood returns to the lungs, and you breathe out your carbon dioxide. So first you breathe in oxygen, the oxygen will then combine with the blood. The blood will provide oxygen to the cells and take carbon dioxide from the cells. And then it will, the blood will bring the carbon dioxide to your lungs, where you breathe it out. Okay, so let's look at some disease with the lungs. So here we have the lungs. As you can see, we are looking now at the lungs from back. These are the lungs from front. So this is, so this should be, that's right, this should be the left lung. Okay, so right lung and left lung. So left lung has 3, yeah, I see now. So left lung has 3 lobes, 3 portions, and right lung has 2 portions. So lungs, however, sometimes get ill, such as when you catch COVID, but they also can get ill for many other reasons, such as when people smoke. What we see here in the picture is emphysema. Emphysema is any air-filled enlargement in the body's tissues. Most commonly, emphysema refers to the enlargement of air spaces, alveoli in the lungs. We'll be looking at alveoli a little later. There's a lot to talk about lungs. And so when associated with significant airflow limitation, emphysema can cause a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a progressive lung disease characterized by long-term breathing problems and poor airflow. Globally, it accounts for 5% of all deaths. So 1 in 20 people dies on emphysema. All right. So now here we have the breathing system again. we get the lungs here, the heart is hidden here in the middle, and we get here. What I want to show you especially are these little tubes. So we get tubes through which the air is coming in and carbon dioxide out. We were already talking about the sinuses, but here I want to show you the trachea, and then the vocal cords are in here. So as we breathe out, the breath is obstructed by the vocal cords, and the movement of the vocal cords creates vibration in the air, and therefore we can hear sounds. So here we see how the heart is embedded in the lungs. As you can see, the heart is slightly by our left side. Now we can see how the lungs and the liver affect each other by the shape. So the liver by our left side is occupying a rather smaller space, and by the right side, it's occupying large space. So although they're occupying a little different space, somewhat they're horizontally even at the top. So the lungs have a similar size. Why does one lung have 3 lobes and the other one 2? I searched the answer, but I couldn't find it. An answer for why do they actually have lobes is available, and that is if one portion of the lung becomes defunct, if it stops functioning, well, then at least the other part of the lung will hopefully continue functioning. But again, why does one have 2 and the other one has 3? I didn't find the answer for that. Okay, so now let's look at the alveoli. So these are alveoli. They're tiny, tiny little chambers where the exchange between the air and carbon dioxide happens. So air is coming into these chambers. It connects. It combines with the blood. And when the blood comes into these chambers, the carbon dioxide separates from the blood. It collects in these chambers, and then we breathe it out. There's a little video about that, again from Design Made. So this is breathing in, and as we are breathing in, the air is traveling all the way until it reaches these little chambers, alveoli. Now in these chambers, as you can see, they're wrapped in blood vessels, here called capillary. And the air, when it enters these chambers, it somehow proliferates through those chambers into the capillaries and joins the blood. So here the blue blood means that there is no air yet. And then when the air joins the blood, it is here shown as red. So the blood becomes red. Now, what we see here as the gray balls, they try to illustrate the carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide will now move somehow into these chambers, and then from those chambers, the carbon dioxide is breathed out. So now we see the function of the diaphragm. This yellow round thing here is the diaphragm. So as the diaphragm pushes the lungs, then we breathe out. And when the diaphragm moves down, then the lungs expand and we breathe in. So now we are going to look at the blood vessels. Here we can see the liver. We will be looking at these later, but here I want to show you that there is the smooth muscle, which is behind the thickness and thinness of the walls. So in your body, these tubes, they're doing their job. They're thicker, they're thinner, and you don't even know when they get thicker, when they get thinner. They get thicker when they need to reduce the blood flow, and they get thinner when they need to increase the blood flow into some parts of the body. So here we see we get sometimes a thinner wall, sometimes we get thicker wall. Okay, sometimes we get a very thin wall. And this thinness and thickness is done by the brain. So the brain sends signals to these vessels, and accordingly the walls of the vessels get thicker or thinner. Now we are moving on to the heart. So the heart has its chambers and its ventricles. So the right atrium, or the yes. So there are atriums. Atrium is literally the hall. Like when you have a home, in the home, before you enter any room, you first have to enter the wall from the main entrance. That's the place where you probably keep your shoes, where you keep, yes, probably you keep your shoes there, and you make it nice so that any visitor who comes already in the beginning feels like they're in a nice place. So that's called atria in the Latin language, and it's used atrium, and it's used here to illustrate that there are like halls or entrance rooms where the blood collects, and from which the blood moves to the main chamber. And so the main chamber is the ventricle. So the right atrium receives oxygen-poor blood from the body, and pumps it to the right ventricle. Now I have here a note about the auricle. Auricle is tiny little portion of the atrium which provides more space for the blood to collect before it moves to the ventricle. Then from the right ventricle, the blood is pumped into the lungs. All right. So the oxygen-poor blood that comes to the right atrium moves to the right ventricle and then to the lungs to discharge the carbon dioxide and receive oxygen. The left atrium then receives the oxygen-rich blood from the lungs and pumps it to the left ventricle, from which it moves to the whole body. So here we see a little bit the anatomy of the heart. So we get the right atrium, and then right atrium sends the blood to the right ventricle. We don't see the left ventricle because that's on the other side, but we will see it in a video a little later. So the video is lost. No, it's here. It's here. I just didn't play it for you. So here it is. So you will now be looking at the heart from various sides. So you can see here the right atrium and the right ventricle, and now the left ventricle and the left atrium are visible. I have made the walls transparent so that you can see better what's inside. All right, so now let's see, how does the heart work with electricity? So the brain is sending electric impulses into the heart. These electric impulses again send chemicals, and those chemicals make the heart pump. So first we will see the unoxygenated blood. Let's see, this is the blue, so unoxygenated or purple. Unoxygenated blood goes from right atrium to the right ventricle, then to the lungs. Then from the lungs, you get the oxygenated blood into the left atrium, and then the left ventricle, and then that is sent throughout the body. So the heart, of course, consists of a very special muscle. It's the so-called cardiac muscle. And this cardiac muscle has to work throughout our life. And therefore, it's a very special muscle that can sustain the different life changes that we're going through. So here you will see the heartbeat in a more realistic way. Now we are looking at the blood system. So arteries take the oxygenated blood through the body to distribute the oxygen. The veins return the unoxygenated blood back to the heart and then the lungs to support it with oxygen, to support the body with oxygen. To supply the blood with oxygen. Okay, so here we are going to look at the lymphatic system. So lymphatic system is very important for our immunity. Lymphatic system produces, maintains, and filters special white cells that travel around the body, and they destroy various bacteria, viruses, and take care of the dirt. So it consists of two things, thymus and spleen. In the Buddha's teachings, we do not learn about thymus. Why didn't the Buddha ever mention thymus? I don't know. But the Buddha did mention spleen. So when you consider spleen, you can consider it together with thymus as the lymphatic system. Thymus produces the lymphocytes, and lymphocytes, which include the T cells and B cells. T cells are produced by bone marrow and mature in thymus. They also protect the body from infections and disease. B cells make antibodies, proteins, which eliminate pathogens, which means agents that produce disease, so viruses and bacteria. Spleen, what it does, it acts as a filter for blood. Spleen spleen also recycles the old red blood cells, and what else? And white blood cells are stored there. So this is the spleen. So we see the spleen over here. And a cross-section of spleen is over here. Now we get homeostasis. So homeostasis is a very special feature of the human body that helps maintain balance. It maintains the balance between several things. First and foremost, the temperature, sugar, and water. So in homeostasis, the blood glucose rises or reduces based on whether the blood glucose is important or not. This will depend on how much energy we have to expend. If we use a lot of energy, well, then of course, blood glucose rises. If we don't use much energy, then it lowers. Then we get pancreas releases insulin. So insulin works with the blood, and okay, so blood glucose level rises. Pancreas releases insulin so that it is controlled, so that the blood glucose is not too much. Then body cells take up the glucose. Then liver takes up also glucose, so that you get the energy. You can do whatever you need. Then the blood glucose level declines, and so you're back at your equilibrium, at your balance. But you also need to maintain water balance, which is done by the kidneys, and you also need to maintain your heat, which is done by the muscles and by the skin and by the brain. So we'll be looking at some of those parts that are behind homeostasis. Now we are looking at endocrine system. So endocrine system is the system that's behind the hormones, and hormones make you do things, and they make the body do things. So hormones are most importantly produced by the brain, but we'll be looking here at these three parts outside the brain. So that's the thyroid, then the adrenal glands that we already talked about, and then the pancreas. So thyroid controls the bodily use of energy, produces proteins, controls the bodily sensitivity to hormones. So thyroid basically controls how much and where the hormones go. Adrenal glands produce precursor hormones for testosterone and estrogen and progesterone, which control sexual activity. So as I was not sure, now it is sure, adrenal glands are responsible for sexual hormones for both ladies and gentlemen. Pancreas produces the hormone insulin, which regulates the level of sugar in the blood, secretes pancreatic juice, which helps us digest the food. Then, of course, there are problems such as diabetes. So in case of diabetes, it's a problem of endocrine system where there is high blood sugar levels. Diabetes is due to either the pancreas not producing enough insulin to take care of too much of sugar, or the cells of the body becoming unresponsive to the hormones' effects. So the cells of the body don't care anymore when the hormone comes. They just don't listen. Classic symptoms include thirst, the need to go to pee very often, weight loss, and blurred vision. Hormones are also produced by the sexual organs of men and women and the thymus. Thymus, we already spoke about thymus. It's over here. So now we will be looking at the thyroid. The thyroid is hiding two tiny little structures known as parathyroid. They do something else. These tiny structures, there are four tiny structures embedded in thyroid, and their function is to produce hormones that regulate calcium within the blood. And so the parathyroid is actually behind the strength of your bones. Whereas thyroid, to repeat, controls the bodily use of energy, produces proteins, and controls the bodily sensitivity to hormones themselves. Now we are looking at the brain. So we are looking at the inner portion of the brain. Why is this here? Oh, because it's a link. Okay, that's good. So yeah, I put this link here and then I forgot that, and that is the link. So for the endocrine system, for the hormones, you need pineal gland, hypothalamus, and pituitary gland. I'm wondering whether this will take me somewhere, if it's a link, but it's not. We'll see later. So pineal gland, hypothalamus, and pituitary gland, what do? Pineal gland receives information about the light-dark cycle, and based on that, it will secrete the hormone that makes you tired, that makes you sleepy. Hypothalamus is behind your homeostasis, so it helps take care of temperature, sugar, and moods so that they're balanced. Pituitary gland is attached to the hypothalamus, and it secretes certain hormones. Somebody said something in merckmanuals.com. The pituitary, a pea-sized gland at the base of the brain, produces a number of hormones. Each of these hormones affects a specific part of the body. Because the pituitary controls the function of most other endocrine glands, it is often called the master gland. So that's the pituitary gland. It's right here in the front. So the brain is, what you see by the left is the back of the brain. What you see by the right is the front of the brain. Now we are going to look at digestive system. So you're moving a little fast, but indeed the time is also running fast. So we get here the spleen, we get here the right lobe of the liver. So you could see that the liver is bigger on one side and smaller on the other side. So it is separated into so-called lobes. Then we get the stomach here, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. Gallbladder, which stores the pancreatic juice. Pancreas. The juice, the digestive juice from the liver, not pancreatic juice is something else. So this is pancreas. It has its juice, but the juice goes directly into the small intestine, the so-called duodenum. We'll see that soon. So here we have the liver. We're now looking at the body from front. This was from the back. Now we're looking from the front, and we see the liver, the gallbladder, stomach, spleen, pancreas, large intestine, small intestine. Now here we are looking at a disease of the liver. So one of them is steatohepatitis, is a disease of the liver in which fat is accumulated in the liver, so-called steatosis, and the liver is inflamed. It can be related to alcohol, but does not have to, may progress towards cirrhosis. So what is cirrhosis? Well, cirrhosis is a very serious problem. It's an impairment of liver function caused by a scar tissue. So there is a scar in the liver. However, this scar tissue replaces the functioning tissue. So you get there a piece of liver that doesn't work. Cirrhosis has a slow progress. Some early symptoms include tiredness, weakness, loss of appetite, weight loss, and nausea. People may also feel discomfort in the right upper abdomen around the liver. Chronic hepatitis C is an infection with the hepatitis C virus, causes inflammation of the liver and a variable grade of damage to the organ. Over several decades, this inflammation and damage can lead to cirrhosis. So hepatitis is a problem. It's caused by inflammation and infection, and it leads to gradual decrease of the liver function. Okay, so now indeed we're going to look at the digestive system. So we get here the tongue. We already saw it before, but here I want to emphasize the salivary glands. So the salivary glands are not just below your tongue. This one is the most famous, but we also have salivary glands throughout most of our inner part of the cheeks. Now, what continues is the so-called epiglottis or windpipe. So epiglottis is at the back. It's at the back of your mouth. This is in a child. Sometimes in the children, the epiglottis is visible. So this is healthy. This is a healthy child. So we get the epiglottis visible here. What it does is that it decides whether you are breathing or whether you are eating. Now, what if the epiglottis decides that you are breathing while you are eating? Well, then that's a problem, because then the food goes into your lungs and not into your stomach. So we need to be mindful when we are eating, so that we make sure that when we are eating, then the epiglottis opens the path for the food to the stomach. And then when we are not eating, well, then of course, as we are speaking, the epiglottis is opening the path to the lungs. So now we are looking at the esophagus. Esophagus is a tube, a very different one from the other tube that we looked at a while ago. Is it? So we were looking at it yesterday. No. What is it? Oh, here it is. So we are looking at the pipe that leads to the lungs. So that's the so-called trachea. And now we are looking at another pipe, which is behind the trachea. And that's here. That's the esophagus. So you can see here the trachea is in front and the esophagus is at the back. So now this wants to show that the stomach needs blood, but all of our organs are wrapped in blood vessels so that the cells get sufficient oxygen and therefore energy, and they can expel the carbon dioxide so we can breathe it out. Now we'll be looking at the action of the stomach. So when you eat something, this is what your stomach will do. So the stomach is churning the food. It's pressing the food in various ways so that the food becomes smaller and smaller pieces. So here we are now looking at the gallbladder. Gallbladder is storing the bile, which is produced by the liver. And what is bile? So bile is a fluid released by the liver, stored in gallbladder. Bile helps with digestion. It breaks down fats into fatty acids, which can then be taken into the body by the digestive tract. We'll be looking at it soon. Now here finally we see the duodenum. So duodenum is the starting portion of the small intestine into which the food that you have eaten is moving from the stomach. The pancreatic juice is moving there. So that's the juice created by the pancreas that will help to how to say that, dissolve, or better Well, it will help to digest. It helps to break down, well, that's the word, break down the pieces into small pieces and chemicals that are very important. And there are many chemical reactions that help create even more chemicals that are needed by the body. And of course, the bile also joins the mixture in the duodenum. This is the duodenum. This is the pancreas. And you can see this little tube inside is the pancreatic duct. Then here above, hidden, we see the gallbladder, and this triangular thing is the liver. Now we are going to look. Oh, we're finished. Now we're doing very well, actually. So we are now looking at the small and the large intestine. The aim of these three pictures is to show you the digestive system from different angles. So by the left, you see it from front. This is from a side. This is from behind. So we can see here that the anal portion is providing more space. There somehow, so what is actually in the space? Well, most importantly, you get there your kidneys, and for ladies, they get there the ovary and the whatever is the reproductive system. And now we will be looking at the digestive process more in detail. So when you eat the food needs to be broken down into tiny small chemicals, and the chemicals then need to enter the bloodstream. But it's a little more complicated. In order that the highest number of your chemicals enter the bloodstream, the intestinal walls have protuberances, so they have like hair there. That's why they're called villi. So this hair that lines the wall of the intestines, they contain also even smaller hair on themselves. So let's see. This is already one of the micro hair. This is one of the hair on the that. Okay, so it's one of the hair that contains even smaller hair, and this tiny little hair by the side here that forms the entrance point for the chemicals. The chemicals then, based on some chemicals that go outside, or actually inside into the intestines, there happens a chemical reaction. Things that are needed for the body appear, and they can therefore enter in and join the bloodstream. Now we are looking at the so-called appendix. So appendix or cecum, is a dead-end pouch forming a part of the large intestine. The scientists today, the doctors, are not really sure what it serves for, but in animals, it serves some kind of bacteria. It serves to maintain bacteria that can later go into the intestine if the important intestinal bacteria dies out, for example, due to disease. So, for example, in the animal, there will be many bacteria in the intestines which help to break down the food and with the digestion. Now, if the animal gets ill and the bacteria that break down the food die, well, then the bacteria from the cecum can enter the intestine. They can multiply and supply the necessity of the bacteria in the intestine. All right, and then we have the feces. So these are parts in the body that you will be considering. I'm wondering whether I should explain the brain as well. but I think we will keep it for tomorrow. We have 2 days for observing the body, so we do not really have to go through everything. You can take brain, you can meditate on the brain, but instead of understanding the brain through this lecture, you just understand brain up to your knowledge. Later, I will tell you more about the brain, but I believe that you don't really need it at this particular moment. So I will be sending for you in the chat box the list of the parts that that I count as internal organs. Oops. Something. Okay. Okay, I see very well. So we're looking through, we're looking at the layers the previous days. So that's hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, muscles, sinews, bones, bone marrow. So that's altogether 9 things. I'll write them for you. Or maybe I already have done it. Yes, here it is. So we get here 9 portions, 9 things in the body, which we can consider to be the so-called layers. Hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, muscles, tendons, bones, bone marrow. And then we get here another 10 parts of the body, which are the internal organs: kidneys, heart, liver, the covering of internal organs. So all of the organs have some kind of cover or some kind of wall, whatever way you understand is probably fine. Then we have spleen, lungs, large intestine, small intestine, undigested food, and digested food. So these are the 10 parts. So altogether there are 19 plus 1, and that's brain. We will be talking about brain tomorrow, but you can consider brain already now. So how will you meditate on that? So now comes the instruction. So you need to meditate at least 1 hour of loving kindness per day. Okay, and you will be meditating the universal loving kindness. The universal loving kindness practice. We didn't have time to look at it to practice it together, but we will. We can meditate tomorrow on loving kindness right at the start. Okay, I think. I see. So you can follow loving kindness in here. So in this practice, probably all of you or most of you already did meditation on loving kindness with me. If you did not, doesn't matter. You can look at this video. And the loving kindness technique has 3 portions. 1 portion observing the muscles, then observing peace, and then actually it has 4 portions. So 1 observing the muscles, observing peace, gradually expansion of your love to all beings, and then the so-called universal loving kindness. So first portion is meditation on muscles, 1 cycle, then observing peace alone, then gradual expanding of love to all living beings, and then the 4th portion is universal loving kindness. That means loving kindness to all beings at once, including yourself. Now, this practice in the video takes 15 minutes. Now, you are, however, supposed to meditate 60 minutes. So how are you going to do that? You will extend the fourth portion. So the first, second, third portion are called the preparation. So one cycle muscles, observing peace, and gradually expanding of loving kindness. That's your preparation. It should not take longer than about 10 minutes. Then the remaining about 50 minutes you spend only by repeating again and again and again, may all beings, including me, be in peace. Okay, so you have it in the chat. So this is what you need to do every day. You need to meditate at least, no, not at least, exactly. What is this? You need to meditate exactly. Oh, I see somebody is drawing on my screen. No problem. I'm used to that from the kids. Okay, so how will you meditate on the body? So after you finish your 1 hour loving kindness in the morning, I suggest that you do it in the morning. Then whatever is your walking or sitting practice will follow the same instruction. So you start by your determination. From now on, for 60 minutes, I will meditate on repulsiveness of the body without any movement. And then you need to do 1 cycle of observing muscles. After you finish your 1 cycle of observing muscles, you can start with your hair. So you will move on to the top of the head again after you finish the cycle of muscles, and you observe, you consider the impermanence, the danger, and the absence of control in the hair. Then you move gradually down, and you consider impermanence, danger, and absence of control in the body hair, gradually down until the tips of the toes. And then you start another cycle, which will contain the skin. So you observe the skin, and you consider the different parts of the body. So the top of the head, forehead, eyes, nose, lips, chin, cheeks, and so on. You consider those different parts in terms of the skin. So you consider how the skin there is impermanent, dangerous, and how it is absent, it is absent of control. Then you continue to the muscles and sinews in 1 round. Okay, so you consider muscles and sinews together in 1 cycle. We meditate on muscles, but that's a little different, because we meditate on muscles by by the obvious parts. So we consider top of the head, forehead, eyes, nose, and so on. But when you will meditate on muscles in this practice of repulsiveness of the body, it's different, because you will be considering the muscles themselves, not the parts of the body. For example, when you come to the eyes, you don't just say eyes. You also consider the fact that there are muscles around the eyes, and that there are small muscles around, wrapped around the eyes. So you consider the muscles more exactly. Like when you come to the arm, for example, you don't consider, oh, there are some muscles in the arm, but you consider exactly what are the muscles there in the arm up to the level you can remember. None of you, and probably nobody in the world, is able to consider all of the muscles and exactly as they look like. It's just not, so far, I don't think anyone like that exists. But you try your best. So if you do a little, if you do close to the reality, it's more than enough. The good news is that you really don't have to be exact. In the Buddha's time, monks did not observe the body correctly. They observed a lot of nonsense that they believed at those times, and still they became fully enlightened. How did they do it? Because the point here is not to understand how they exactly look or where they are or what exactly they do. Here, the point is to understand that they are impermanent, dangerous, and absent of control, that they are impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self, that they are solidity, cohesion, temperature, motion. So if you can get that understanding, then that's all what you need. So then you can say, so why do you show us this presentation if you don't have to know it? Well, I'm showing you this presentation to encourage you in this enthusiasm, in this curiosity about the body, to see that there is so much about the body, and to have a little bit of feeling that you somewhat know what's going on, so that you don't tell me, oh, well, you say spleen, but I have no idea how it looks like. You see, now you cannot say it anymore. And if you forget, well, the recording is in YouTube, so you just open YouTube and you look at it again. All right. Okay, so you do muscles and sinews in one go, and then you do muscle. Then you do bones. You can do bones and marrows in one cycle. Okay, you don't have to do 2 cycles, but I leave it to you. You can separate it. You can do it at once. Then after you finish bones and bone marrow, well, then you move on to the internal organs. And for the internal organs, I have already provided you with some help. So you first start with kidneys, and you include in the kidneys, if you're a gentleman, which you are not, but you include there whatever is relevant to the kidneys, for example, the adrenal glands and the reproductive system. And also the thyroid and parathyroid, okay, because they are behind the production of certain hormones. So we take them just as hormones. You know, thyroid and parathyroid produce different kind of hormones, but they're all hormones. You know, they're in power. They have the power over your body. You don't. It's the hormones. Heart includes veins and arteries. All right. So as you consider heart, you consider all those veins and arteries all around the body. Then liver includes the gallbladder, because the liver discharges, you know, the bile, and that's kept in the gallbladder. Gallbladder is just the little bag that keeps the bile. Then covering of internal organs, you can go from up to down, various internal organs, and you can consider their covering. So the heart, the lungs, the liver, the spleen, what else? The pancreas, the stomach, the intestines, and so on. You can then continue to the spleen. Spleen includes thymus. So thymus is what is at the chest portion. Spleen is rather lower, behind the lungs. Then we get lungs, include the trachea. So the lungs, you can consider them together with the pipe that takes the air in. Then large intestine includes the appendix or the cecum. And then we get the small intestine, which includes the stomach and the pancreas, because the Buddha does not mention stomach and pancreas as separate portions. So we will have to consider them as included in the small intestine. And then we have separately undigested food. So that's probably the food you ate today. Digested food is the one from yesterday. But I leave it to you how you understand it. Or you could say undigested food is the one in the stomach and in the small intestine, and the digested one is the one in the large intestine. And then the brain. So you can consider the brain together with the spinal cord and all of the nerves at the same time. So whenever you consider each and every part, you consider impermanent, dangerous, absent of control. What is this thing called absent of control? In two ways. First, you did not design it. You did not come to your mom and say, hey, mom, I want my brain to look like this. I want my hands to be like that and legs like that. You didn't do that. Okay. So you did not design it. They appeared based on your gamma, based on the environment and so on. For some people, they appeared in the desirable way. For some people, in the undesirable way. We don't have the power over how they actually appear. Second, they're out of control in terms of the change. They are changing their way. We cannot really affect the way how they're aging or how they're getting disease or how they're getting failure. So that way they're absent of control. And then a problem will come probably that you will not catch up with time, that you will need more time for all these 20 parts of the body than the 60 minutes. So for that, I allow you can have 2 sessions for for all of the 20 parts. So if you do, for example, 10 parts in the first session and the remaining 10 parts in the second session, it's fine. You don't have to do all of the 20 parts within one single 60-minute session. However, of course, it's better if you can do all of them within one session. Do not take more than two sessions. Now, suppose that you have finished one session, you did 5 parts, you are now doing your second session, you have done 10 parts, you see 3 minutes are remaining for your meditation, and you still have 5 parts to go through. So how will you do it? Well, speed up. Okay, you need to speed up. You need to somehow make it so that you finish. Now, what if you do 10 parts in the first session and you do the remaining 10 parts in the first half of the second session? What should you do? Well, then I would suggest that the remaining part of the second session, those, let's say 30 minutes, you really, really speed up and you do just all of the 20 parts in those 30 minutes. Okay. We want to have it regular. You don't want to have it messed up. So you want to have either all in one session or all in the second session. And if you finish earlier than the end of the second session or before the end of the first session, well, then you need to do very fast review of all of the 20 within whatever is the remaining time. Any questions, any concerns? Yes.
Dear Bhante, do we have to take a break between the 2 sections?
If you change from sitting to walking or from walking to sitting, then no need to take a break. But if you do sitting and then want to do another sitting, well, then you need to have at least 15 minutes break.
Okay.
And every session needs to start with 1 cycle observing muscles, even if it is the continuation session. Any more question? Yes, Hang Nguyen.
I would like to clarify that we spend the first 10 minutes on observing 1 cycle of muscle, observing peace alone and expanding loving kindness to all beings. Then we spend 15 minutes to observe responsiveness of the body.
No.
I didn't get that.
No. Wrong. You should not do it this way. No. Totally wrong. So from now on until tomorrow interview, you have about 21 hours or 22 hours, right? So within these 22 hours from now until tomorrow interview, within those 22 hours, you need to meditate at least 6 hours. That's clear? Yeah. So now what will you be doing in these 6 hours? 1 of the 6 hours need to be fully dedicated to loving kindness. And the remaining 5 hours need to be fully dedicated to repulsiveness of the body. Clear?
Yes.
Any more question? It's great if you can ask like this, you see? And I don't like when there are people from outside who will think, you didn't understand it. This guy doesn't know it. You see, I don't want that. So that's why I'm so strict. And maybe it will happen in the future, that in the future you also would like to join my interviews. So no, it doesn't work. You cannot. And if you want, well, you will have to be lucky to have amazing technical equipment and amazing internet connection so that at least you're visible. Okay. Anything else?
And I would like to clarify one more point. So for the remaining 5 hours, we'll make the first determination. From now on for 60 minutes, I will meditate on repulsiveness without any movement. And then we start with observing one cycle of muscle, and then we observe our body parts. Is that correct? For the remaining 5 hours.
Yeah, all those remaining 5 hours, each and every of the hours, you start with your determination that you will observe repulsiveness of the body or meditate on it. And then you do one cycle of observing muscles, and the remaining time you go through the parts of the body as we were talking about them these few last days. Okay, so this will be a very hard work. You will need to have your notes close to you, so hopefully you have them. And this video should be available. I think Tutam will be sending the link to the video. So if something is not clear or you want to remind yourself of something, you can. I've been developing this presentation for I think for about like 10 years. So if you ask me many of the things, 10 years ago, I would say, what's that? That's really part of the body? I didn't know that. So I would not even know some of the things that they're actually part of the body, let alone where they are or what they do. And even now, still, many of the things I don't remember, I'm reading them for you. So you're not supposed to know that. You're supposed to have some kind of, feeling that you understand. If you have that feeling, then that's enough. All right. If you don't have it, well, then be just happy that you know something, that you know more than you knew before. So you feel like, okay, well, I know more than I knew before. So it's definitely better. So let me work with this and gradually improve. So actually, it's totally enough to meditate on hair, body hair, nails, teeth, and skin to become an arahant. Yeah. In the Buddha's time and later, people meditate just on these 5 and they became arahants. Until today, when somebody wants to become a monk and the assistants shave his head, well, he has to consider on these 5 things. He has to consider hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin, hair, body hair, nails, teeth, skin. Or in the Pali, kesalomana kadantadacho, kesalomana kadantadacho. So until today, because there were cases of young gentlemen who were shaven their hair, and during the shaving, they became arahants. It's so powerful. That's why I said it's a shortcut. It's a very powerful meditation practice. So do not worry if you forgot some parts, or that you don't remember some, or that you don't know how they look like or where they are, or let alone what they do. Okay, many of them are really complicated, like the parathyroid are really complicated. I already don't remember. I read it for you a while ago. I already don't remember. No need. The idea here is to show you that there is a lot to learn, that it is interesting, that this body has its own system of doing things, and it doesn't really care about what you think or what you want. Okay, the body knows better. Or that's what the body thinks, if it thinks. Okay, so then the body makes a mistake and you have nothing you can do because the body thinks it knows better. The body doesn't think, of course, but the idea here is that there's a system on its own that is independent of what you want or what you think or what you would like. And if you start to add your likes and wants and so on, then it will just cause you suffering. We can provide some support, but that's just support, you know, putting medicine in the body or putting there some food or taking exercise and so on. That's just a support. It's not really controlling the body or changing the body. No, sometimes the exercise will not help you at all. And sometimes the medicine also doesn't help you. Sometimes exercise causes injuries and problems, just like medicine. So we need to be very careful. How do we actually support the body? But in the end, the body will do things on its own. All right. So it was a pleasure to see everybody, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you soon attain the eternal bliss of Nibbana.
Thank you very much, Bante.
Thank you.
Everyone, can you please stay in the Zoom few minutes?